G'day, leaders. In this podcast, we talk about a fantastic quote or a saying that a setback is a setup for a comeback. It's a mindset shift and it can help you improve and not look at failure as a failure. Enjoy.
Why did it count backwards? I know that we're now recording.
What? Hello, Captain.
What I
Come fly with me. Let's fly away.
What are we going to talk about?
I don't know. So, leadership, life, and everything else.
Yeah.
And we're live.
No, we're
Again.
we're recording.
Again. No, yeah, but we're recording again.
We are. This
Yes.
is take two.
Take two of this podcast. The sign says we're on air, so
Yes.
yeah.
Okay.
So we're recording live
So, funny thing happened.
on the way to the store.
We, before Daniel's podcast, where we interviewed him,
Yeah.
amazing podcast, we recorded this podcast, but we actually forgot to record.
No, it was recording, but it stopped. Something happened.
yeah.
Yeah.
So-
we'll say it was a technical issue.
That's right.
So we're recording this for a second time.
Yes, and it's going to be better.
Exactly. And which is the perfect segue into the topic of this podcast.
Yes, it's perfect for a setback,
Is a setup.
for a comeback.
Yes.
Ta-da.
Now, the reason why we thought about this particular topic, I had a student come up to me over in Adelaide and he said, Guy, do you remember that quote I gave you? And I went, I hadn't seen him.
Aren't they always trying to test you?
They are. They're testing my memory. And I hadn't seen this guy for quite a few years, but it was fantastic that he came up and did this because I love this quote. A setback is a setup for a comeback. And when he said that to me, I thought, I love that quote, but I'd done nothing with it. I hadn't written it down. I hadn't put it in any of the workshops or workbooks. I don't know the origin of it other than this guy in the course over in Adelaide. Anyway, so we thought we'd have a whole podcast on the topic of a setback being a set up for a comeback.
I love it. Perfect.
It is good. So, firstly, just a shout out to a friend of mine, so Yvette Higgins. So, Yvette is a water polo, a former Olympic, you're always an Olympian, but she's a former water polo player. I think she might be playing again socially, but she is an Olympic gold medalist. She scored the goal on the buzzer to win the game against USA in the 2000 Olympics. So she was instrumental in winning Australia's first water polo gold medal in Olympic history. And she was chatting to me the other day about someone that she's mentoring. So her best friend, Liz Weeks, who was also in that team in 2000, gold medalist, her daughter is now playing, and she's a goalkeeper like myself. And they were asking my advice on how to help her with regards to her mindset when somebody scores a goal. And it relates very, very closely to this topic that a setback is a setup for a comeback. Now, when I was playing, I developed this routine that when somebody scored a goal on me, rather than turning around, grabbing the ball, throwing it back to halfway and having a huff, what I'd do is before I'd grab the ball out of the back of the net, I would get myself back into the same position that I was in when they shot the goal, and then I'd replay it as if I was saving the ball. Okay, that's what I'll do
You
next.
see that sometimes, actually, even on televised sports. You see the goalie or the person who didn't get something redoing it.
Yeah, because it's a way of using the failure, which is having a goal scored against you, as an opportunity to learn for the future. So you're basically creating new neural pathways in your brain that say, next time I'm in that situation, this is what I'm going to do, and as a result, I will save the ball rather than the ball going into the goal. So what I'd do is I'd replay it in my mind. I'd also replay it physically, so I'd jump up out of the water and pretend that I was actually saving the ball. Then I'd get the ball, throw it back to halfway, and I'd forget about the goal.
Yeah.
And the days, I know we've spoken about this on another podcast, but Liz and Yvette, rather than going back through our podcast and trying to find which one it was, I thought we'd just re-record it at the start of this podcast. When something happens to you and it's not what you want, you can either be a victim of that and then let that amplify in your head, or you can rewire it as an opportunity to learn something and then move forward.
Yeah.
Now, you would have had similar things
absolutely.
in aviation.
So, well, in the simulator, we have the luxury of doing things over and over, which at the time it didn't feel like a luxury because we were under the pump and it was a stressful situation and we were being graded and, potentially lose our jobs. But it did give you the opportunity to have a go. And if you didn't get it right, better to not get it right in a simulated experience rather than in the aircraft.
Yep.
So we would go back and do it again. Now, in a simulated check, it is easy to, like you were saying, to get stuck in your head if you do something wrong and then be thinking about that rather than the task at hand or what's coming up.
So you're then operating the current task with less of your neural resources.
Yeah, exactly. You kind of half your brain's still stuck in the past, like kind of going over the things that you did wrong and if only I had the opportunity to do it again sort of thing whilst you're continuing down the track. And yeah, you've at 50% or whatever percentage it is of your available brain is trying to do the next thing. And it doesn't go well. It does not go well. And so we would be told to stop and to let that go, unless it was something where catastrophic, we were upside down or whatever.
Yep.
But if it was a small hiccup, we didn't quite follow the procedure properly or we missed something, to continue. And then always, in the debrief, the good checkies would say to you, okay.
Checkies, as in check captains. They're checking.
Yeah, check
captains.
You. Yeah. They would ask you to self-assess.
Okay.
And of course, we assess harder.
Yes.
We assess ourselves harder than except for the psychopaths who were like, oh, that was unreal.
That was somebody else's fault.
Look at me, I'm Top Gun. Yeah. But it was, a great opportunity. And if you had a time left over and a chance and it was a no jeopardy kind of stuff up, you could have another go. Mm-hmm. And like you were saying, it didn't quite do it. So you get it into your muscle memory.
Yep.
And it reinforces how it should have been, how you would have preferred it to go. And then you generally don't have to think about that again because it is part of muscle memory and you're better next time.
Yeah. I love hearing that that's what you captains do in the airline industry because that makes me feel a lot more at peace that you're training constantly and you're doing it in an environment where it's simulated, but you get the chance to learn from your mistakes and improve and, know what to do if something goes wrong.
Yeah.
Which is why you're quite unflappable. That's when things go wrong, you tend to be quite calm and ready to, analyse the situation. So you obviously trained that.
Oh, what they say, it's like a swan. Calm on the outside, on the exterior, whereas underneath, I'm pedaling like a bastard. But it's
really? It doesn't look like that. Yeah.
Well, kids do it these days with gaming. One of my sons is a freak at a current game. He practices and practices.
He does.
And if he does something wrong or gets killed, he learns not to do that again. Yeah. And he goes straight back in and has another go and does.
Well, our mistakes are the best opportunity to learn because there's no, like we say this so often to our kids, and we should get it into everyone's head, regardless of whether they're children or not, that there's no such thing as failure. There's only learning. Yeah.
Trial and error.
Trial and error.
Yeah. But let's bring it back.
Because it's kind of disappearing, isn't it?
Yeah.
And we were talking about this in the previous attempt at this podcast when it didn't work, that social media just shows a plethora of success. Everyone's success. Everything's all about success. And kids don't actually get to see all of the hard work behind the success. And they don't see the failures. And it's almost like, hey, let me just show you my best version of self, all my wins, but we don't get to see the attempted, the tries that failed or didn't go as planned in the past. So there's probably less exposure to failure now.
Yeah.
So kids want to be good and better straight away without the effort.
Yeah, I met two ladies at a networking lunch, and they had just started that week their own. I'm now trying to think what it is. It was like a mortgage broking and property agency sort of setup. And they were from the industry and had been working for a major for over 20 years each independently. So they came together and they formed their business, and they were talking about some of the things that hadn't gone so well, and the website, and they hadn't got their license in time for this and that, and things that had not happened.
Yep.
And then they were talking about what their first post was going to be on social media to show that they'd launched and how great it was. And I suggested that they put the fact that this didn't work, this hasn't happened yet. And they said, oh, no, but we want people to think that we're professional. And it got me thinking that, like you just said, the fact that we put only our best side and heavily filtered and edited version of ourselves out on social media, whereas I would be invested in them that they were human if they showed that, hey, this didn't work and we haven't got this yet, but we're getting there. So when they did get it and put it on, I'd be celebrating with them because I'm on the journey.
Yeah, okay. So they're transparent. They're showing vulnerability.
Yes.
They're showing that they've learned, that they're real. So very much like what we talk about in the leadership workshops, that you need to be vulnerable. You need to be human and show that you're human, because then we can trust you, especially when it comes to, for example, making mistakes.
Yes.
And you'll remember the other day I was doing the keynote, you came along to assist, and we were talking about confidence.
Yes. Yep.
And so one of the techniques that we teach when we're teaching confidence is how to handle mistakes. And I always challenge the audience. I say, okay, well, what do people typically do when they make a mistake? And so the most typical thing they do is say sorry. They go, oh, I'm sorry. And then the person
and who
goes,
are you saying sorry for, you or them?
yeah, it's definitely, it's you. It's not them. You know, when you're saying sorry, it's the same as saying, oh, I'm so sorry. Please don't be angry at me. I don't like it when people are angry at me. So when you're saying sorry, it's a lack of confidence, believe it or not. It's a nice thing to do. You're doing it because most people who say sorry are nice people. They go, oh, I'm sorry.
Yes.
You know, they don't like hurting other people, and they don't like, you know, feeling as though they're in trouble. But when you've made a mistake, the last thing you want to do is say sorry. The other things that people do is they lie. Oh, that wasn't me.
Yeah, it wasn't my fault.
They blame somebody else. That was Michael. You know, they'll blame somebody else, or they'll just defend themselves. Look, I was busy. I couldn't do it, or whatever it is. But it's so important that when you make a mistake, if you want to show confidence and vulnerability, that you own it. You give the person awful.
Yeah.
We always talk about awful. You own it,
Acronym.
you fix it. Yeah, it's a good acronym. Own it, fix it, apologise, and learn from it. In that order. It's got to be in that order. So, you know, we've got a few clients that we're consulting with, and we're talking to them about the way they handle customer mistakes. And the worst thing you can do when you've made a mistake is say sorry to a customer. The very first thing that you should say is, that's not the experience that we want for our customers. We made a mistake. I'm going to fix this by doing these things, and I apologise, that was the experience you had. And then the L is learn from it so it never happens again. And if leaders can do it, if businesses can do it, it shows vulnerability, it shows honesty, and it shows confidence. It shows that if I made a mistake, I'm not going to hide from it. I'm going to own it. And that's the way leaders can actually show that any setback is a setup for a comeback, because they're going to learn from the situation and not let it repeat.
Well, especially leaders, and that can include parents.
Yep.
There is always someone watching you, and they're watching you to learn from you.
Yep.
Even bad leaders, you know, learn what not to do.
Yeah.
But there's an opportunity in everything to inspire, to teach, to motivate those that are watching you.
Yeah.
And so if you do it that way and you own it and then fix it. So otherwise I was thinking, oh, is it foal, a foal? If you mix it up, don't do it in that order. But if you continually do that, then it becomes, that's acceptable to own up to your mistakes. If it's from the top down, it's often respected more as a company, as a culture.
And when people don't own their mistakes and they hide, etc., that becomes a culture. But you can't trust the person because you know that they're hiding. You know they're not being honest and open.
Yes.
Yeah. It's such an important skill to be able to take ownership of your mistakes. I try and do it with the kids as well. So if I react rather than communicate, and I think communicating is communicating calmly and logically as an adult, as a parent should be. But if I react with emotion because I've lost my control of my emotions, I get frustrated. I will always apologise for the tone of voice that I've used if it was the inappropriate voice, but I'll say that but the message still holds. What I said was correct, but the way I said it was wrong, and I apologise. And I think that is also an example of how we can teach kids about, you know, I'm not happy with the way I reacted. I'm not happy with the emotion that I had in my voice.
And I should have done this. And then
this is what I'll do next
apologise.
time. Yeah. So it's taking ownership of things, because we can't tell kids not to yell and scream at us if we're doing the same to them.
That's right. Energies match, don't they?
I used to have this joke. My next door neighbour used to yell at the kids, and if you do that one more time, I wanted to say out the window, "I'll yell one more time." Because it seemed to be that was the only consequence, that I will yell one more time.
Yeah, that's
one
it.
more time. Anyway.
There are opportunities in business and life for the setback is a setup for a comeback. You could rebrand if something didn't work, pivot like in startups, and having been involved in a startup that I learnt a lot from that, in the fact that pivot and fail fast.
And fail fast forward.
Yeah.
Fail forward fast, I've heard.
Right.
Yeah. I like that.
Yes, I like that. And so, and then if there was something did go wrong, or an expectation wasn't met, so therefore a setback, you lost something, you failed something, it didn't happen, etc. That if you own it and do exactly that without knowing that it was awful, it actually makes the person, the recipient of that, more of an advocate.
Yes.
So they're a champion for you. That's right, the trust. And then because you've gone beyond expectation, because like you said, people don't own up to it. There's an innate thing where, for safety, we don't want to admit that we've failed, that we haven't done what we said we'd do, and so if we do that, we own it, and then we give them more than what they expected.
Yeah, which is what we talk about in the customer centricity course. Yes, if you make a mistake, it's not a bad thing for a customer, as long as you own it straight away. That's not the experience we want for our customers. But then you fix it beyond their expectations. And what the research shows is that if you make a mistake and then you fix it beyond the customer's expectations, you've just won a customer for life, a customer advocate, because the initial mistake causes frustration. Then when you fix it beyond their expectations, they're elated. And it's the change in their emotional state which makes them remember that experience. And
that's it.
Yeah.
Exactly, the emotion. So the setback, and we all feel that, the negative. The negative, and your whole, everything about you, there's a depression. And I don't mean depression necessarily as a mental thing, but just that lowering of energy. And then, so if you can do it, that you then get re-inspired and reinvigorated for the setup
for the comeback.
It's almost like you have that Rocky moment,
Here's
the
my
stairs,
opportunity.
and that's right. I can hear the music in my head now.
No problems, just opportunities for solutions.
Eye of the tiger.
So, just going back to the corporate environment, when leaders show humility and vulnerability, and they own their mistakes, and then that becomes acceptable for everyone else to do it as well, it creates what's called psychological safety. Because when you don't feel safe, when you feel as though when you make a mistake there's going to be big repercussions, and sometimes there are big repercussions if it's a situation where safety is involved. But what I'm talking about is just standard human mistakes. If it's okay to make mistakes, you make less mistakes. And the way it works, and I'll tie this back to the water polo example I was giving earlier. So if I made a mistake, so somebody scored on me, and then I didn't grab the ball, I replayed it in my mind, this is what I'm going to do next time, and all right, I'm ready to go for next time, throw the ball back to halfway, I would forget the negative experience.
Yes.
It'd be gone.
Yeah.
And at the end of that game, if I did that during a game, at the end of the game, I could remember all of the saves that I made, but I couldn't remember a single goal that they scored against me. But the days where I wasn't on my game, I wasn't on top of my mental game, and they'd score a goal and I'd have a big huff and puff and, I'd get angry, and then I'd throw the ball back to halfway and not get it out of my head. It became a cumulative thing. So the next time they're coming down to attack and they're getting ready to, throw another goal at me, I'm still in my head about the previous experience. So I'm feeling anger, which then hijacks a lot of my neural resources, which means I'm now operating on less of a brain than I had when I was clear. And so then I would make more mistakes, and it became cumulative. And the same thing happens in an organization. If you fear making mistakes, you make more mistakes.
Yeah.
Right, let's go back to the topic at hand. So it was a setback is a setup for a comeback. Yeah. So I remember a few situations in my life and in my career where it didn't go as well. Didn't go as well. And I was beating myself. I'm always my harshest critic, as you are as well. You're your own harshest critic. But it's not necessarily a bad thing if you use it to learn.
Yes.
So if you are criticizing yourself, it's okay if you then learn from that experience.
Using it as feedback.
Using it as feedback, not criticism, which was the other podcast that we did. There's no such thing as criticism. There is only information that you get to choose what you do with.
Yes.
But it's the same with self-criticism. If you're looking at something that you did and you're beating yourself up, that's the wrong approach.
Take
Certainly
the emotion
be
out.
critical of what you did, but in a mindset that you're learning from it. So, okay, what did I do? What could I do differently next time? What led to the failure? What can I adjust in the future? What is the lesson I can take out of this failure or this adversity that I've gone through? And then, like we talk about in the anti-fragility workshops and keynotes that you do, that you are then moving forward with skill and strength and, experience, which is so vital.
No, that's right. And I was reading a book where Mr. Dyson from Dyson Vacuum, his failures amounted, before he actually had, and I'm saying failures, but they weren't actually failures, times that didn't work, or adjustments were required. 5,371 times, I think it is, off the top of my head, that number.
That reminds me of Edison.
Yeah.
Okay.
And rather than look at them as failures, they were tweaks and improvements to the design, so that he actually got to the dual cyclonic, design vacuum that 0.3 of a micron or whatever, which is cigarette smoke, I learnt. Yeah, it can. So all of these, he could have started with the original patent and just left it at that, which, but, went on to improve, and still has the thing of they're still improving.
Yeah.
They're not just stopping there.
Not staying still.
So,
that's good. I like that. And that's... I guess if you went and spoke to Mr. Dyson, who we don't know.
No, but I've heard they've got a Harrier jump jet out the front of their factory, their head office, which would be very cool. And it's not a model, it's a real one.
Actual Harrier jump jet.
Yes.
And that's because...
It's in ingenuity and so in innovation,
because the Harrier
creativity.
jump jet was the first plane to jump off an aircraft character vertically.
Go upwards,
yes, very much so. So I guess if you approached Mr. Dyson, he'd say that, they weren't failures. That was us learning and progressing and improving and innovating, very much like the Edison quote. I'll say it again. I've said it before. And I really hope this is true. It's on the internet, so it's got to be true. Mr. Edison, when he was inventing the light globe, failed many, many times. In fact, he had many, many patents that didn't work. And a journalist, this is how the story goes on the internet, a journalist once said to him, "Mr. Edison, how do you feel about failing 10,000 times?" And he said, "Sir, I did not fail 10,000 times. I found 10,000 things that do not work." And he definitely said it with that tone of voice.
Yes. Yes, it's like Confucius say, Apple iPod is better than Samsung, or whatever, I don't know.
That's that joke we were quoting people from the past this morning. So many quotes on the internet where you go, hold on, that person couldn't have said it because that technology didn't exist.
That's right.
Yes. Socrates was a big fan of the iPhone. But Edison's approach to failure, that there's no such thing as failure, it's just learning.
Yeah.
We should all adopt that.
So it's information.
It's information. Yeah, so a setback is a setup for a comeback.
Yes.
And this is our comeback podcast, because the first time we tried to record this, it failed. Well, it didn't fail, it was a technical failure, but...
Well, are we passing the buck?
To the technical failure? Well, neither of us pressed the button that made it fail.
We can say it was such a great podcast too.
Yeah, it was. Well, it was. I was really impressed with that one. We remember when we found out that it failed. We're looking at each other going, "Oh, that was so good, though."
That's right. So, no, what a fantastic segue into our podcast now. So, yes,
absolutely. All right, so to summarise, there's no such thing as failure.
No.
There's only learning.
Yes.
But a setback, so anytime things don't go as you plan, and you might have labelled it as failure. Reframe it into a setup.
Yes.
An opportunity
for a comeback.
And that comeback will be with you with more skill, more knowledge, more strength.
Yes. experience.
More resilience.
Yes.
More anti-fragility.
That's it. Perfect opportunity. So, fail forward fast.
Fail forward fast. There's no such thing as failure.
No.
Okay. So, more dogs?
More dogs. Where are you, Bollinger? Where are you?
Bollinger, we're still waiting. You were the first we called out. Bose, we're still waiting for you. Lint.
Yeah.
Chocolate. We're happy to take.
Oh, we do have one sponsor for this episode, and it's the Car Wash Kid.
From Balmain, the local Balmain hero.
Yes.
The Car Wash Kid.
Goes around washing cars in Balmain. And he said that he'd sponsor this podcast. So thank you very much, the Balmain, the Car Wash Kid.
Yeah. So how are we getting paid? Like car wash?
That'd be nice.
All right.
Yep.
We'll put it out there.
Okay.
That's our first sponsorship. Our cars will be washed.
Awesome.
All right. So good to see you. I saw you this morning.
I know.
So good to see you.
Until next time, guys.
Until next time. Oh, okay. Is that going to be our sign off? Until next time.
Bye, Guy.
Bye, Michelle.
Well, that was fun.
That was fun.
You're such a clown.
The clown.
Lady Captain. There we go.
And who's going to listen to this? Maybe our mums.
Thanks, Mum.